All right, y'all, we have already talked about our two major parties, which means our focus in this video is going to be understanding and reflecting on what are known as America's third parties. After we do that, we're going to really work to consider why our system often results in only two major parties. Now, to understand third parties, we have to understand party systems. And so what we see here is an overview of the types of party systems that exist. The first is a one-party system, and that is really when one single political party controls the government. In countries that have one-party systems, other parties may or may not be even allowed to exist, but they have very little power. The classic examples of one-party systems is the, Chinese Communist Republic, China, North Korea, and certainly Russia would be an example of that today. A two-party system is really when you have two major parties that work to compete for control of the government. And this is the United States. This is our system. But we can compare that to also a multi-party system where you have several political parties compete for control. This is actually the most common type of party system you see in democracies. Now you'll notice that one-party system, is potentially the consistent party control result, which means you're going to have a stable government. But if we look at Russia, if we look at China, it's not necessarily a good thing. Debate amongst groups is a good thing, and whether you think it's best to have it just amongst two, as we have in the United States, or amongst multiple parties, depends a lot on your views. Now, if we're talking about America's third parties, we can really refer to any political party that exists in the United States that is not the Democrats or Republicans. They are likely representing ideas and stances that are different than that of the Democratic Party and that of the Republican Party. They might be similar, but they're going to be somewhat different. Oftentimes, they exist to make the two major parties focus on certain issues. But as we're going to see here in a second, they rarely win races. You have these, overviews in your packet, but when you take a look, here the Green Party has one state house lower seat, but other than that has elected no one. The Libertarian Party, again, very little success in electing people. The Constitution Party, the Reform Party, they are barely electing people. And these are our major parties. Now, to highlight what these parties believe in and their actions, we're going to try something different. I'm actually going to play a video within this screencast so that you get a sense for what they believe in. In your packet, you're going to find a table that represents the views of these political parties, and it's based on the political spectrum. So you're filling out this table based on the video we're about to play. It goes quick, so make sure you are following along, and you can always go back. Here we go.
Do you ever wonder why you've only got two choices when you walk into the polling booth on Election Day? Actually, you don't. There are plenty of other parties aside from the Democrats and the Republicans. But who are they? The two largest third parties in America are the Libertarians and the Greens. Libertarians don't really fall on the left or the right. They believe in total individual freedom and want the government to get out of people's lives. They're pro-choice, pro-guns, pro-gays, and pro-drugs. The Green Party, planted firmly on the left, strongly supports policies that strengthen environmental protection and social justice. Neither scored higher than single digits on Election Day. And if those two don't sound like your cup of tea, there's also the Reform Party, made famous by eccentric billionaire Ross Perot in the 90s. They're for folks who are fiscally conservative, but who want the government to stay out of social issues. Or how about the Constitution Party, which is so conservative, they're pro-life, pro-gun, anti-tax, and anti-gay, that it makes the Republicans look like they're on the left. Speaking of which, there are at least a dozen socialist or communist parties fielding candidates in America today. And just in case you thought prohibition was something you learned about in history class, there's still an official prohibition party fielding presidential candidates trying to take away your booze. So why haven't you heard more about these other guys? Because there are 50 different sets of rules for getting on the ballot. And the system can be so complicated that smaller parties can find it very, very, very difficult to navigate through the political waters. So what do you think? You going to vote for a third party this year? Do me a favor and let us know. Log on to takepart.com/Tuesday, comment on this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And you obviously don't have to do any of that. There you have a super quick overview of the beliefs of some of our largest third parties in this country. And again, every single one of those, the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Reform Party, the Constitution Party, they're all considered third parties because they're not the Democrats and they're not the Republicans. But the video also brings up this good point of why don't third parties get elected in the US? And if you remember and take a minute to think about it, the video gives an example or an explanation. They say it's because there are over 50 rules to get on the ballot. And in your mind, you should be thinking 50 sets of rules. 50 sets of rules. The number 50, how does the number 50 apply to our country? Oh, that's right, we have 50 states. As we'll talk about down the road, states make our rules around elections. Hence why there are 50 sets of rules. But we also have to ask ourselves, is that really the only reason why third parties can't get elected? And there's another reason, another explanation, and it's how we go about electing people. This idea of winner take all versus proportional representation elections. And again, you're not going to be tested on this, but I want you to be able to have a sense and an understanding of how these two systems work. In a winner-take-all system, that means representation is based off of single-member districts. Thomas Worthington's located in the 12th district, and only one person represents the entire 12th district. And because it's a winner-take-all system, it's the candidate who gets the most votes wins the seat. The loser gets nothing. As you can kind of see here, as long as you get one vote over 50%, you're going to win. Whereas in a proportional representation system, political parties in the legislature, so in Congress, they're going to get the same number of seats that is equal to the percentage of votes that they receive. So the loser's not going to get everything, but they're not also going to get nothing. They're going to get less than what the winner does, but they're still going to get some. And we can see a number of studies of what this might mean if we actually had a system like that in the United States, and how there's an expectation that we'd have what is considered a social democratic party getting about 26% of the vote. But we'd also have a liberal or a center-left party that would get about 28% of the vote. That there would be a conservative party getting about 8% of the vote. There would be a right-leaning Christian coalition that would get about 11% of the vote. And there'd be a more right-leaning populist People's Party that gets about 26% of the vote. And we could see all of these different, politicians listed here as political leaders in that system. We'll also come back and talk about Ohio's way of drawing systems. But if you look at election results in the state of Ohio, you'll see that on average, Republicans typically get about 55% of the votes in the state, and Democrats get about 45%. However, when you look at how districts and representation is handled out, you'll see that Republicans hold nearly 67% of the seats in the House, and out of, the Senate, it's closer to 75%. And so there you see a difference that is far greater than that 45% vote for Democrats and 55% of the vote for Republicans. And this is in part because of a winner-take-all system. But we'll come back and talk more about that when we discuss district lines and the fun of drawing them. For now, y'all, your task is to complete the political parties check for understanding, and once you are done with that and you feel ready, you can put your name up on the board to complete mastery check number 2.